Let's talk about the contenders for the nomination. Now, there are a number of names that are floated constantly, but here's what we know. The president wants a woman, and there are a number of women being floated, but there are really only two to pay attention to. The first is Amy Coney Barrett. Amy Coney Barrett she was a law professor in Indiana at Notre Dame, and she is a devout Catholic. She belongs to a Catholic group that is very pro-family, very conservative, very traditional. She is very pro-life, considered as such. The Democrats hate her guts. In fact, when she was appointed to the Seventh Circuit, Notre Dame's faculty unanimously endorsed her candidacy, regardless of their political persuasion, because it was widely acknowledged that she is conservative, but she doesn't wear it on her sleeve. Her students said they would have never known her politics in class. And in fact, at Notre Dame, she was one of the few law professors that did not open every day with prayer and Bible verse. Interestingly enough, Amy Coney Barrett was a law clerk for Antonin Scalia, and until the day he died, he routinely said that Amy Coney Barrett had always been his favorite law clerk. Through the entire course of all of his law clerks that he had over the years, Scalia consistently said Barrett was his favorite. And she is an originalist, very much like Scalia. She is in the Scalia mold. Her style of writing is not as flashy as Scalia's, but she's no nonsense, to the point, without flash, originalist, structuralist, textualist, constitutionalist. She is so devout in her faith that Democrats actually said they would oppose her because they believe she couldn't keep her religion out of her judicial opinions. That was actually one of the reasons Democrats said they would oppose her, which is striking. So she's also from the Midwest. The Midwest is must-win area for the President of the United States. And so getting Amy Coney Barrett, if that matters, could potentially help him. Now, she's got 7 kids. That's another area of attack for the Democrats of how can a mother of 7 pack up her whole family and move them to to Washington, D.C. Why would she do that? Of course, this puts the Democrats in an awkward position of attacking a woman for having a career outside the home. And they may be able to distinguish and say, well, but she's got 7 kids. Who's going to take care of the kids? But is that really an attack the Democrats can make? I don't think it is. They may very well try, though. They've been really disparaging of her and of her faith. And that could hurt them in hearings with swing voters in the Midwest. The other major contender is Barbara Lagoa. Barbara Lagoa is 52. She is on the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, headquartered out of Atlanta. She's one of the Florida judges. The 11th Circuit, Amy Coney Barrett's on the 7th. The 11th Circuit covers Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. The 11th Circuit is divided among judges from each of those 3 states. And Barbara Lagoa is one of the judges who is from Florida. She was a circuit court judge in Florida for a number of years and attracted the attention of conservatives in Florida for her opinions on life issues, among other things. She was considered staunchly conservative on the Florida Circuit Court, and Ron DeSantis elevated her to I take it back. It was Rick Scott elevated her to the Florida Supreme Court. Ron DeSantis then pushed her nomination to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals after his election. The Senate of the United States confirmed her in November of last year with 80 votes. 80 votes in the Senate. This was why, and it's important to note with Barbara Lagoa, that she was confirmed by a bipartisan supermajority in the Senate while impeachment was going on. She got votes of Democrats and Republicans for the 11th Circuit. Now, the strike against Lagoa from conservatives is that she's relatively unknown. The Florida conservative groups love her and are willing to testify that she is pro-life, she is conservative, she is a fan of the president's. He nominated her, Donald Trump did, to the 11th Circuit, and the Senate confirmed her by 80 votes. She's the first Latina, first Hispanic member of the Florida Supreme Court. Florida is a must-win state for the president. This could potentially help him in Florida. The question is, does Amy Coney Barrett help the president in the Midwest more than Barbara Lagoa helps the president in Florida? There's a lot of data that looks like the president's probably going to win Florida anyway at this point. He's drawn to within a point of Joe Biden and the polling average in Florida. Pretty significant close for the president in the last 6 weeks of the campaign in Florida. Early voting begins, I guess, this week in Florida. You got a couple of debates coming up. He doesn't necessarily need Lagoa to secure Florida, but a Hispanic mother before the United States Senate Judiciary Committee, and the Democrats savage her. What does that do to Hispanic voters across the country? There has been a lot of alarm by Democrats that Joe Biden is floundering with Hispanic voters, and this is not a partisan issue here. You're hearing this on MSNBC. You're hearing it on Meet the Press on Sunday mornings. You're hearing it on CNN. You're reading about it in the Politico, in the Washington Post, and the New York Times. The Democrats are upset because Joe Biden is starting to lose Hispanic support. Hispanic voters are drifting to the president. If the president nominates a Hispanic mom like Barbara Lagoa to the U.S. Supreme Court and Democrats savage her, what does that do to the Democrats with Hispanic voters? What does that do to the Democrats when they come after Barbara Lagoa, who is devoutly Catholic as well, like Amy Coney Barrett? What does that do? Now, I can tell you the conservative preference, my personal preference and conservative preference, is Amy Coney Barrett. And a lot of conservatives think that Amy Coney Barrett would be the staunchest Scalia-like replacement the president could pick. We wanted her over Kavanaugh. I wanted her over Kavanaugh. So a lot of conservatives are insistent she's got to be the pick. The president himself said he was saving her for Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Part of the problem that we conservatives need to understand with ourselves and our thinking is that we're so desperate for Amy Coney Barrett. We want Amy. We wanted her with Kavanaugh. Does that shape our thinking on the politics of the matter? I have, for example, in the last 48 hours been bombarded with friends of mine in Washington and elsewhere saying Amy Coney Barrett would really help the president in the Midwest. Amy Coney Barrett could help the president pick up Midwestern states. Amy Coney Barrett, when the Democrats went after her yet again, like they did the last time, attacking her Christian values, that's going to solidify swing voters. I hear this all the time from Republican voters. I hear in the last 48 hours, it has just been a chorus call of conservatives saying these things. There's really no evidence that Amy Coney Barrett could pull the GOP up in the Midwest. And the reason I say that as opposed to Barbara Lagoa in Florida is Barbara Lagoa in Florida was elected statewide. Now, she's actually got a voter base in Florida. Amy Coney Barrett was a law professor who went to the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. She's never had a base like that. She's never been on a campaign trail. She's never campaigned. She's never done anything like that, as opposed to Barbara Lagoa. Now, by the way, I don't want to be dismissive of it. I want Amy Coney Barrett as well. I just think one of the things conservatives need to be mindful of is our desire for her. Does the emotional appeal of her shape our calculations as to why she would be better than anyone else? I think she and Lagoa would be very strong picks. My gut is that Lagoa would probably do more for the president with Hispanic voters in Florida than Amy Coney Barrett would in the Midwest with women or with anyone else. At the same time, it would be really awesome if you put Amy Coney Barrett on the Supreme Court. She would be amazing.